Never did I envision that the gentle cadence of my existence could be interrupted by something so minuscule, so commonplace as simple favor. That's where it all began. Over breakfast, as he sipped his usual black coffee, my husband casually tossed out the idea, weaving it into the morning's rhythm. Each morning, he sipped with a calm indifference, as if the ritual held no spark of anticipation. His words drifted like whispers in the air, overshadowed by the rhythmic clink of his spoon against the cup. It would assist him in finding his footing. He mentioned he's skilled with his hands, could mend the fence, perhaps handle the garage door. I nodded, naturally, as there was no reason to do otherwise. The young man he spoke of had woven himself into the fabric of our lives for years. His adoptive grandson, though never truly a child in my eyes, at least not anymore. He had blossomed the last time I laid eyes on him. He lingered in that delicate space between youth and maturity. Yet, as he crossed the threshold of our front door, that effortless, carefree smile gracing his lips, he moved with the confidence of one who was fully aware of his own identity. Before I even had the chance to fully grasp it, the change caught my attention. His shoulders had taken on a broader stance, his jawline now cut with a sharper edge, and there was a newfound confidence in the way he moved that had not been present before. The handshake conveyed strength. The gaze was unwavering yet warm, inviting a sense of camaraderie without overstepping boundaries. And yet, beneath it all, there lingered an ease that seemed just a touch too intentional. My husband offered a brief glimpse of the backyard, pointing out the broken latch on the gate and the tools nestled in the garage. Their conversation flowed with the ease of practicality, focused and straightforward, as men often do, with little interest in anything beyond the task at hand. As I lingered by the kitchen window, my gaze fixed on them, my fingers danced along the rim of my coffee cup, a curious tension coiling itself in an uncharted space between my ribs. It was not desire, not yet, but rather a keen sense of awareness. That evening, as I glided through the comforting rhythm of preparing dinner, I discovered myself selecting a dress that had lain untouched for months. Soft and inviting, delicate fabric, slender straps, the sort that embraces just enough to evoke a sense of your own form. I convinced myself it was due to the sweltering heat. Summer pressed against the windows, the air thick and heavy, wrapping around everything like a warm embrace. Yet, I was aware of the truth. On the terrace, the three of us gathered to share a meal together. My husband shared tales primarily centered around his work, weaving in details about the upcoming journey he would embark on, to embark on yet another conference, another series of meetings. His words weaving through the familiar tapestry of obligations and deadlines. I listened intently, nodding at the right moments. Yet my gaze wandered more than once to the man seated across from me. He sat with a relaxed posture, one arm casually draped over the back of his chair, a hint of stubble along his jaw suggesting he hadn't bothered to shave that morning. His gaze met mine for just a fleeting moment, yet it held on for a heartbeat longer than it should have. As the last bite of the meal was savored, my husband rose from the table, politely excusing himself to attend to a few calls that awaited him. I lingered in the open air, collecting the plates, feigning ignorance to the soft tread of the younger man closing in behind me. He extended his hand towards the pile of dishes I was holding. "Allow me to assist you." Our fingers brushed against each other, if only for a fleeting moment. In that delicate exchange, a gentle touch, nothing by design, nothing that would catch the eye of another. Yet, the feeling lingered, a gentle warmth enveloping my skin, long after the plates had vanished. In the time that followed, that night, as I lay in bed next to my husband, the rhythmic sound of his breathing filled the room. Yet sleep eluded me. Restlessness coursed through my body beneath the sheets, while my thoughts swirled around, unruly and unyielding. I rose, my bare feet gliding silently across the shadowy hallway, drawn toward the kitchen. whispering to myself that I craved a glass of water. Yet, it wasn't the thirst that held me in its grip, preventing sleep. I lingered at the threshold of the guest room, a moment suspended in time. It was ever so slightly open. From deep within, the soft whisper of a melody lingers in the air, wandered away, a gentle, whimsical melody softly hummed under his breath as he wandered about within. I might listen closely to the creak of the floorboards beneath his feet, the soft whisper of fabric in motion. The gentle cascade of water begins to flow from the showerhead, the sound of water cascading against the tile. I remain still, captivated by the sounds around me. That simple, intimate moment. Once upon a time, there was a serene moment of cleansing and renewal, where water embraced the body, washing away the day's burdens. As the day draws to a close, one finds solace in the gentle embrace of relaxation. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a closeness that took me by surprise, intrusive. It felt as if I were observing a scene meant to remain hidden from my eyes. Yet, I remained still, not just yet. As I reluctantly returned to my bed, the familiar ache of quiet tension lingered in my body. I quietly nestled under the sheets next to my husband. He sensed the comforting presence of his arm draped casually over my waist as he stirred in his sleep. His touch was soft and tender. Customary. In a state of unawareness, as it had always unfolded. Yet, my thoughts lingered just beyond that guest room door. I reassured myself that it was insignificant. I reassured myself that this too shall fade away. I convinced myself that it was all just a figment of my imagination. Yet, a change had already taken place. The dawn broke with a familiarity that echoed the rhythm of countless mornings before. The sun streamed through the half-open blinds, casting elongated stripes of light that danced across the kitchen floor. I glided through their actions, my mind adrift. The kettle whistles, a gentle melody, while a butter knife glides softly over the warm toast. As I reached for the milk, a soft, steady hum of the refrigerator filled the air, a gentle reminder of the everyday moments that weave the fabric of our lives. My husband had already departed, as he often does, leaving me with a fleeting kiss upon my cheek. Before the front door softly clicked shut behind him, everyday life unfolds in a predictable rhythm. Protected, anticipated, I urged myself to cease. To calm whatever had awakened within me the previous night. I convinced myself that I had outgrown such foolishness, too prudent to allow my imagination to wander so freely. Yet, my body revealed its secrets in subtle whispers. Once more, the decision regarding my attire that morning lingered in the air. The delicate care I took with my appearance as I tied my hair swept back, a hint of color gracing my lips. Certainly not for anyone, of course, merely to embrace the essence of sensation. Once upon a time, in a world filled with endless possibilities, there existed a notion, a whisper of something waiting to unfold. There he was, outside, fully immersed in his task at hand. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing arms that flexed with each strike of the hammer as he drove the rusted nails back into their rightful positions on the fence. He was entirely engrossed, lost in the task at hand, seemingly oblivious, or maybe intentionally feigning oblivion, to my presence. As I lingered for a moment, observing him from the porch, the sweat tracing the line of his brow captured the morning light, shimmering like delicate beads of glass upon his skin. His body glided with the grace of one well acquainted with toil, each movement purposeful and unhurried, as if he danced to a rhythm only he could hear. With a deliberate stride, I descended toward the garden, the laundry basket in hand, embodying the kind of graceful purpose I had honed through the passage of time. Should he happen to notice, the gentle movement of my dress danced around my legs, while the delicate strap gracefully slipped from my shoulder. He offered no sign. Yet, as I extended my hand to attach the first piece of fabric to the line, I sensed his gaze intentional, lingering, and unmistakable. It enveloped me, firm and unyielding, like gentle hands resting softly against my back. I held my gaze on the clothespins, my pulse quickening beneath my skin, refusing to turn away just yet. As I finally turned my gaze in his direction, his face was a canvas of mystery, lips slightly parted, as if he stood on the brink of uttering something profound. "The morning is warmer than I expected," he finally remarked, his voice smooth and low. I offered a slight nod, feigning concentration on my task at hand. "Indeed, it is." And so, it might have concluded at that very moment. That moment felt like the perfect conclusion. Yet, he chose not to return to his duties. He approached me, each step deliberate and slow, crossing the neatly kept lawn, halting just within reach, allowing me to sense the subtle warmth radiating from him. "In the space that separates us, you appear transformed today," he remarked. I chose not to respond. My voice felt untrustworthy. Instead, I reached for another pin, meticulously securing the next piece of fabric onto the line, my hands unwavering even as my heart raced beneath my ribs. A stillness lingered, just long enough for the moment to hang delicately between us, filled with uncertainty. "Apologies for last night," he murmured, his voice gentle, tinged with uncertainty. If I had crossed a line, I could have halted it right then and there. I might have accepted the offer, smiled graciously, and reassured him that nothing had transpired, not a single thing. Yet, there I was, caught in the depths of his gaze, lingering longer than intended, each moment heavy with intention. "I did not," I replied. The words slipped from my lips before I could even pause to consider their weight. He moved in, drawing nearer until I could discern the delicate shadow of stubble tracing his jawline, the subtle narrowing of his eyes as he examined my face with intent. His hand shifted, a touch uncertain at the outset. As the gentle curve of my arm invited a soft touch, fingers glided lightly over the bare skin of my shoulder, and I remained still, embracing the moment. We remained in that moment for what seemed like forever, the air around us heavy with the significance of all that lies beneath the surface. And then, as if the very air around us could no longer contain the tension, he leaned in, bridging the gap between us with a single, deliberate movement. The kiss unfolded in a way that defied my expectations. It was not a matter of desperation. It was not harsh. It was tender, exploring, the delicate touch of lips meeting lips, inquiring, not demanding. His hand rose to my jaw, his thumb softly brushing my cheek as he angled my face toward him. My body came to a standstill for a fleeting moment, my thoughts echoing urgent alarms. Yet my lips betrayed me, parting willingly. In that moment, as I met his gaze, a slow, trembling response escaped me. The basket slipped from my fingers, and I barely registered the soft thud as it hit the ground, drowned out by the blood pounding in my ears. The warmth of his hand glided along the curve of my neck, his fingers lightly grazing the spot where my dress embraced my skin. I drew back, my breath hitching in my throat, eyes wide with wonder. "This can't be," I managed, the words heavy and awkward. He simply did not debate. He took a step back, creating a distance between us, his hands lifted as if to show he meant no harm. Yet his gaze remained fixed on me, steadfast. "I understand," he murmured, "but that won't quell our desire for it." I averted my gaze before he could catch the warmth creeping into my cheeks, stooping to collect the strewn laundry with trembling fingers that refused to still. The remainder of the day faded into the familiar rhythm of life, tending to the plants, polishing the counters, and responding to my husband's call as he reached out to check in. An evening of culinary delights awaits. I maintained a calm voice and a steady smile. Yet each time I shut my eyes, the memory of his lips lingered against mine like a haunting whisper. I was unable to let it go. The taste of that morning's kiss lingered like a secret nestled beneath my skin, an undeniable presence that refused to be silenced. no matter how fervently I buried it under the weight of chores, calls, polite conversations, and the daily duties that ought to have occupied my thoughts. Yet, they chose not to. They hardly touched the depths. All within me stirred with a restless energy, my body acutely attuned to its own presence, while my thoughts spiraled endlessly around the same forbidden path, again and again. He carried on as if the world remained unchanged, or perhaps he simply wore his mask with remarkable skill. As we navigated the familiar spaces of the house, our paths intertwined in the hallway, shoulders grazing near the sink. His demeanor remained steady, an enigma wrapped in tranquility. Yet, there were moments when I sensed his gaze upon me, a fleeting glance that lingered just a heartbeat longer before he averted his eyes. There was no remorse in it, no hint of embarrassment, only that unwavering, calm determination. It stirred within me a wildness, or perhaps just a raw truth. As the sun dipped below the horizon, my husband shared the news that he would be departing at the break of dawn. A new journey unfolds for work, perhaps 3 days, or maybe for his voice carried a hint of regret. Yet his gaze remained fixated on his phone, fingers dancing across the screen as he spoke, punctuating his words with bites of food. At dinner, I wore a smile, nodded in agreement, and spoke the words that flowed just right. Rest assured, it's significant, and I will take care of everything here. And I truly felt it. At least a part of me did. Yet another chapter, yet another section was consumed by the flames. That night, I lingered longer than needed in front of the bathroom mirror, my fingers tracing the delicate curve of my collarbone, captivated by the way my skin blushed under my own gentle touch. I selected my nightgown, with an abundance of thought. Gentle touch, delicate material. There was an allure, a whisper of desire, hidden from the eyes of the world. The figure in the mirror gazed at me, a stranger in her own right, a woman I hadn't seen in ages. Rest eluded me. My body lay still under the sheets, my breathing measured, as I listened to my husband turn, shift, and finally settle into the steady rhythm of deep sleep beside me. As the weight of the moment became unbearable, I eased myself from the bed, my bare feet whispering against the hardwood floor. I made my way down the hallway, stepping out onto the terrace, where the cool night air caressed my flushed skin. He stood there, leaning back against the railing, arms folded, his profile caught in the soft glow of the light, the soft glow of the moon. I pondered whether he had been waiting, or if the same restless spirit had drawn him from his bed just as it had done to me. As the gentle click of the door echoed softly behind me, he turned his head, his eyes effortlessly locating me in the shadows. In that moment, silence enveloped us, words unneeded. I stood there, clutching the edge of the door frame as if it were a lifeline, anchoring me against the gravity of the moment. His eyes fell, following the curve of my form, the delicate fabric of my nightgown barely hiding the silhouette beneath. I ought to have felt a pang of shame, to have retreated indoors, secured the door, hidden myself under the blankets, and whispered a prayer for. Once the sun began to rise, a new day unfolded. Instead, I drew nearer. The space that separated us vanished in an instant, our forms pulled together by an invisible force that neither of us could deny. His hand moved toward me, fingertips lightly grazing my wrist, as gentle as a whisper. I remained steadfast, not retreating. My hand rose as if guided by an unseen force, gently settling against the contour of his. My fingers brushed against his jaw, feeling the coarse stubble beneath my palm, the warmth of his skin vibrating just below the surface. I found myself in a place I never expected, a soft whisper escaping my lips. His response flowed softly, unwavering. Yet, you truly are. The way he gazed at me, not as a boy pursuing a dream, but as a man fully aware of his desires, stirred something profound within me, causing a twist of longing and ache. His hand glided to the small of my back, drawing me in gently, allowing me the chance to halt his advance. I did not. My form nestled against his, as if it were meant to be. There, my head tilting back, lips parting before his, a gentle brush of connection igniting the air between us. When the kiss arrived, it was gentler this time, more measured, intentional, a question posed, not through spoken language, but through the gentle meeting of lips, the tender glide of his hand tracing the soft curve of my waist. He kissed me as if he wished to etch the moment into his memory. Every moment mattered, cherished, and I allowed him to linger. I returned his kiss with a similar quiet longing, my fingers weaving into the fabric of his shirt, drawing him nearer. The night enveloped us in a hushed embrace, the air heavy with warmth and the intoxicating fragrance of blooming jasmine wafting through the darkness. The garden below. Somewhere within the confines of the house, the clock ticked on, unbothered by the tempest brewing between us. At last, I pulled away, breathless, my hand lingering against his chest. He remained still, not reaching out to draw me back. He released me, yet his gaze remained locked onto mine. "I'm not sorry," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I remained silent. I turned away, stepping back through the door, closing it behind me with hands that trembled as though they no longer belonged to me. The next morning, everything returned to its unremarkable form. The kitchen came alive once more with the gentle symphony of running water, the soft clink of dishes, and the soothing hum of the radio. By the front door, my husband's suitcase stood, packed and posed for his early departure. As he departed, his lips brushed against my cheek, a gesture that felt both familiar and rehearsed, wrapped in a comforting sense of safety. Yet, my body held on to the memories of that night, every nerve tingling beneath my skin, every part of me alive with the resonance of his lips against mine. In that moment, I realized this was merely the beginning of something greater. It was merely the dawn of a new chapter. The morning that followed, the world donned its familiar guise of normalcy so convincingly that, for a fleeting moment, I nearly succumbed to the illusion myself. The sky stretched out in a breathtaking clarity, the sun shining brightly yet tenderly, while a soft breeze danced through the open windows, as if it wished to coax me into a tranquil slumber. The facade of ease, the coffee wafting steam from its vessel, the toast perfectly crisped, the everyday customs unfolding like a finely tuned performance. I lingered at the kitchen table, my fingers dancing in slow circles around the edge of my cup. The chair opposite me sat vacant, the atmosphere in the room heavy with the lingering echoes of the events that unfolded the night prior. My body bore it like a secret etched beneath the surface. The kiss lingered, a gentle intimacy, his lips meeting mine with a tender, purposeful touch, leaving a sweet take in its wake. I reminded myself once more that this had to come to an end, that I could find my way back, that I hadn't yet crossed a threshold from which there was no return. Yet, my body turned against me with each thought of him. The recollection of his hand resting on my waist, the unwavering certainty in his voice when he declared he felt no remorse. Anger should have coursed through me, and disgust at my own reflection should have taken hold. Yet, there lingered only the constant rhythm of desire, beating softly and profoundly, as if my very being had at last recalled the essence of sensation. As the gentle creak of the back door reached my ears, and the soft footsteps glided across the kitchen floor, I chose to keep my head down for a moment longer. I sensed his presence even before he uttered a word. His presence enveloped the space, a silent force that spoke volumes even in the absence of words. "I'm setting out on a journey to gather some materials." His voice pierced the stillness, relaxed and effortless. "Do you require anything from the town?" I shook my head, my gaze locked onto the swirling patterns of my coffee. "No, I'm perfectly all right." It was a deception so fragile that I couldn't even perceive the words without sensing them shatter. Yet, he chose not to confront it. He departed as silently as he arrived, the door gently shutting behind him. Gently, just out of sight. The burden of his absence weighed on me, nearly as much as his presence had, and I devoted the following hours to the quest of rediscovering my own essence. With meticulous care, I fold the laundry, each crease a testament to my attention. I wipe down countertops that gleam with cleanliness, and I rearrange the books on the shelf, driven by an urge to keep my hands busy, to weave a narrative of order in the chaos around me. Yet, there was nothing soften the sharp edges of the tension humming beneath my skin. Each movement seemed like a feeble echo of genuine existence, a show in which I had lost all faith. As the afternoon waned, the oppressive hush that enveloped the house became almost unbearable. I whispered to myself, yearning to escape, even if just for a moment, to refresh my mind and start anew. I seized my keys, donned a light jacket even though the day was warm, and set off on my drive. The town centre bustled with life, yet the gaze of its inhabitants wandered far beyond the pavement, their minds drifting to distant realms and untold tales. The streets unfolded like an old tale, each corner whispering stories of the past. The familiar little grocery store that had been my go-to for years. The familiar, tranquil cafe on the corner, where couples lingered over their coffee, enveloped in a cozy silence that spoke volumes. Once upon a time, in a world filled with wonder, there lived a curious soul who embarked on a journey of discovery. I drifted through the aisles, my fingers dancing over the shelves, as if the simple act of selecting a cereal brand could tether me once more to the world around me. And then I beheld him as I rounded the bend by the produce section. There he stood, waiting, positioned at the distant edge of the aisle. One hand gently cradled the handle of a shopping cart, his head tilted ever so slightly as he absorbed the words on the label. A vessel. He glanced upward, eyes locking, and for a fleeting moment, time stood still as neither of us dared to break the silence. It was an overwhelming amount of serendipity, far too intentional. Attention gripped my stomach, and my breath faltered, caught in the space between my chest and throat. He presented a half smile, casual and untroubled. Did not anticipation hung in the air as I took a deep breath, striving to mirror his nonchalant demeanor. Likewise, the distance that separated us seemed achingly narrow, even with the expanse of the aisle stretching before us. In that moment, we found ourselves rooted in silence, each of us feigning ignorance to the palpable tension, crackling like a storm, woven into the unspoken words that lingered in the air. Seeking assistance with transporting items, he inquired after a moment, motioning toward my vacant basket. A subtle sparkle of mirth danced in his eyes. "I'm fine," I replied, my voice lacking the warmth I'd hoped for. Yet, I chose to stay. We strolled down the next aisle together, side by side, engaging in light conversation about the simplest of things. The winds of the weather, the ever-changing price of fresh herbs, and the sheer absurdity of the parking situation outside, all weaving together in a tapestry of daily life. As our fingers grazed each other in a fleeting moment, we both reached for the same box of tea. Neither of us offered an apology. The journey back was serene, the vehicle resonating with the gentle thrum of the engine and the palpable tension that lingered in the air between them. His gaze would occasionally find me as I looked out the window, attempting to mask the frantic rhythm of my pulse against my ribs. As we arrived at the house, he silenced the engine, yet remained still, hesitating to open the door. Instead, he shifted his gaze toward me, reclining a bit in his seat. "I didn't plan to run into you," he said softly. "Yet, I find myself grateful for the choice I made." I gazed upon him then, truly gazed, and for the very first time, I perceived it. The same struggle flickered behind his gaze, mirroring the fire that blazed within me. The yearning, the holding back, the stillness, a poignant recognition of our actions. "This is perilous," I declared. The words floated softly, her mere breath between us as his gaze locked onto mine, steadfast and unyielding. I understand. The moment lingered between us, an eternity, brimming with unspoken words. And then, with a measured grace, he extended his hand, his fingertips gliding over the delicate skin of my wrist, as gentle as a whisper, as if gauging my willingness to retreat. I did not. He leaned in, his gaze locked onto mine, anticipation hanging in the air, offering me the power to decide. And once more, I let him continue on his path. His lips brushed against mine softly at first, cautious, savoring the moment as if tasting the initial drop of a secret delight. Yet, the pause was fleeting. The kiss unfolded, lingering yet assured. His hand gently supported the back of my neck, while my body surrendered to the pull of his presence. As we finally separated, gasping for air, I leaned my forehead against his with my eyes shut tight. My heart raced fiercely, a rhythm so intense it felt as if it might burst. We shouldn't, I said. Yet, we shall, he responded. In that moment, an unspoken understanding passed between us, a silent acknowledgement of his truth. From that moment on, it was inevitable. There is no longer room for justifications. No longer shall we cower behind the fragile barriers of denial. Something between us had begun to unfold, and neither of us put forth any genuine attempt to halt it. Above all, the recognition. The shared honesty sparked an even greater desire, peeling back the final veils of doubt that had held us in the realm of pretense. As dawn broke, my husband departed, suitcase in hand, leaving a lingering silence in his wake. The gentle sound of the front door closing behind him echoed, reminiscent of the soft click of a trigger being pulled. The silence he left behind hung in the air, weightier than ever before, the sort of silence that magnifies each tiny sound. The steady tick-tock of the clock upon the wall echoed through the room, the gentle creak of the floorboards beneath my feet, the soft, distant chirping of birds' serenades from beyond the window. Common sounds, strikingly intense. I found myself at the kitchen counter, my hands gently encircling a coffee cup, untouched and waiting for a story to unfold. My gaze lingered on the delicate wisp of steam rising, as though I could immerse myself in that moment, escaping the heavy burden that weighed upon my heart. Yet, I found myself unable to do so. My body stirred with a vitality it had long forgotten. Unsettled. Delicate. A deep yearning stirred within me as I caught the soft rap at the back door. I moved forward without a moment's pause. I felt it in my bones. No need to glance around. I sensed his presence long before my eyes caught sight of him. He entered the room, uninvited, as if the threshold held no barriers for him. He gently closed the door behind him, the sound barely a whisper in the stillness. His gaze locked onto mine immediately, deciphering the turmoil I had failed to conceal. As I sought refuge, a wave of warmth surged beneath my skin with each step he took closer, the distance that once separated us vanishing with each stride we take. Silence enveloped us. His hand rose, fingers softly brushing against my cheek, and weaving into my hair as he observed me intently. His touch held no aggression, only an unwavering certainty. His thumb glided softly along my jaw, a tender touch that conveyed both a sense of patience and an undeniable claim, intertwining emotions in a delicate dance. The kiss arrived swiftly this time, lacking the gradual, careful crescendo of those that had come before. His lips sought mine, driven by a desire that mirrored my own. His hands glided down to my waist, drawing me closer, as if we had already lived a lifetime of resisting this moment. Perhaps we had, or perhaps we hadn't. But in every fleeting moment, we averted our gazes, feigning ignorance of the feelings that lingered just beneath the surface. I can't recall how it happened, that my hands found their way into his hair, my fingers gripping tighter as I leaned in closer. As their lips met, A whirlwind of urgency and restraint enveloped them, creating a moment so intoxicating that it felt utterly impossible to pull away. My heart raced with such intensity that I imagined he could sense its rhythm echoing within me. He guided me softly against the kitchen counter, one hand firmly resting at the small of my back, the other resting on my hip, anchoring me in place as if I might vanish the moment he released his grip. I surrendered to the moment. My body leaned into his, filled with anticipation, quivering, yearning for the embrace of him, the heaviness of his hands, the draw of his lips against mine. It was neither harsh nor thoughtless. Each touch was intentional, every movement measured to evoke a deep ache, yet swift enough to ignite my skin with a fervent heat. As his lips departed from my mouth and journeyed along the curve of my throat, a gasp escaped me. My head tipped back instinctively, fingers still tangled in his hair. His breath warmed my skin, his mouth gentle yet persistent as he traced kisses along the delicate curve of my neck. "I can't stop," he whispered softly against my skin, his voice a husky murmur, low and filled with urgency. I chose to remain silent. I was unable to. In that moment, a serene hush enveloped my thoughts, while my body began to articulate a melody I had long silenced within myself. This wasn't the first occasion my husband had departed, leaving me solitary in this house. It was not the first. In moments past, I sensed the heavy burden of solitude settling into the voids he left behind. Yet, this marked the very first occasion I allowed another to delve into that void and take possession of it. The realm, the world beyond stayed the same. The garden danced softly in the breeze, the distant hum of traffic weaving through the air. A soft murmur drifts through the hedges, while the sky stretches vast and clear above it all. Unmoved on the surface, yet deep within, a transformation was unfolding. Vibrant, perilous, as, at long last, he took a step forward. He leaned back, his chest heaving with each breath, his hands lingering at my waist. His gaze remained fixed upon me. Silence enveloped us, stretching on for what felt like an eternity. The atmosphere surrounding us crackled, thick with the weight of the decision we were about to make. "Already crafted. You know this isn't going to be enough," he said finally, his voice unwavering. I nodded slowly, my fingers gliding along the edge of the countertop, seeking something tangible to anchor me. To anchor me, indeed. He was correct. A kiss, a fleeting moment captured in the heart of the kitchen. It would never suffice. The yearning had burrowed too deep. As he prepared to depart, I observed the gentle arc of his spine, the way his shoulders squared, as if preparing to withstand the weight of our recent actions. Yet, he chose not to glance behind. I lingered in that moment, long after the door had softly clicked shut behind him, my body, with the lingering resonance of his caress. My lips remained tender, still heavy from the imprint of his mouth upon mine. Regret should have washed over me. Yet what consumed me instead was an insatiable hunger. When dawn broke, I found myself awakened by the lingering essence of him, a flavor suspended delicately between my lips and the echoes of memory, like a hidden ache that lingers, felt with every inhale. Golden rays poured into the bedroom, tracing gentle lines on the floor and weaving familiar patterns upon the wall. Yet, the very essence of the room seemed transformed. It felt as if it now possessed a hidden truth that I couldn't simply tuck away among neatly folded sheets and half-empty drawers. It was futile to keep up the facade. Not to myself. Not any longer. The line had been crossed. Not by mere chance, but with a deliberate gaze, fully aware of the choice made. What haunted me most wasn't the guilt I was meant to carry, but the hunger that intensified within me. Every time I revisited the sensation of his hands on my skin, his breath a warm whisper against my neck, the roughness of his stubble grazing my jaw as his lips sought deeper connection. I wandered through the house that morning, my fingers grazing the furniture as if it were a relic of another life. The kitchen counter bore the memory of my back arching under his hold, while the chair he occupied the night before stood serene, untouched by the chaos we had woven in the gentle glow of dawn. Every corner of the house seemed to carry a tale. Even in the absence of visible signs, the walls seemed to have soaked in every ounce of warmth, now casting it back at me like a gentle embrace. I occupied my hands, tending to objects that required no attention, polishing surfaces that gleamed with cleanliness. Every movement felt robotic, a feeble effort to quell the mounting tension simmering just beneath my ribs. Yet no diversion could quiet its relentless presence. Every caress of my own hands against my body, folding clothes, brushing hair back from my face, seemed to stir the memories of where his fingers had lingered. By midday, the house lay in a heavy stillness, the silence enveloping me like a thick fog, pressing against my ears with an almost palpable weight. I sensed that the afternoon would stretch endlessly as I wandered between walls that echoed with memories of him. I whispered to myself that the world outside was calling, a breath of fresh air beckoning me, even if just for a fleeting hour. The choice seemed simple as I reached for my keys, draping a sweater casually over my shoulders and sliding my feet into the flats waiting by the door. Yet, the moment I crossed the threshold into the open air, my heart raced with the tantalizing prospect of encountering him once more. That thrilling dance of fate that had long since lost its guise of coincidence. At first, I drove without a destination in mind, the gentle purr of the engine weaving through the stillness around me. The town's streets danced by, their shapes weaving into a tapestry of familiarity. Yet, my thoughts drifted to the heaviness of his stare, the assurance in his grip, the rhythm of his breathing, heavy with longing as he leaned into me. I sensed the thrum of it deep within, an insatiable desire I couldn't articulate or fulfill alone unless I chose to embrace it completely. As I drove into the parking lot of the quaint convenience store nestled on the outskirts of town, a sense of anticipation washed over me. In that spot I recognized, where paths intertwined just frequently enough to allow for a chance encounter, I shared the tale that I was embarking on a simple quest for milk and bread, a seemingly mundane air and that held the promise of the ordinary. Yet, my gaze swept across the lot before I even silenced the engine, seeking the outline of his vehicle. It was absent, and I ought to have experienced a sense of relief. Yet, all that lingered within me was the profound weight of disappointment. As I meandered through the narrow aisles, my movements felt almost automatic, my hands reaching for items without my conscious awareness, my body moving in a rhythm distinct from my wandering thoughts. I ventured down the next aisle, and there he stood, not at the counter, not outside, but posed in front of the cooler, one hand pressed against the cool metal door, the other nonchalantly resting in his back pocket, his head turned at the sound of my footsteps, as locking on to mine as if he had been waiting, or perhaps hoping, for this very moment, for a fleeting moment. It felt as if time stood still, and neither of us dared to make a move. I extended my hand toward the carton of milk that lay closest to me, my fingers surprisingly steady despite the rapid thumping of my heart. His eyes traced the movement, measured and intentional. "Are you now walking alongside me on this journey?" His voice danced lightly, playfully teasing. I offered a brief shake of my head, the edges of my lips curling upward before I could rein them in. It wasn't done on purpose. The air around us was thick, almost stifling, despite the refreshing breeze that wafted from the open fridge. My canvas. I angled my body just enough to feign interest in the labels of the drinks before me. Yet the warmth of his gaze lingered, resting on the curve of my back like a hand gently pressing down. "You're not wearing your ring," he murmured. His voice softened. I paused for a brief moment, my gaze drifting down to my hand, and adorned just as it had been that morning when I had absent-mindedly removed it, setting it softly into the dish next to the sink where it typically rested at night. I chose to remain silent. The silence enveloped us, dense and palpable, filled with unspoken words that lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Yet neither of us dared to voice them. Inaguable. He approached with an ease that belied his intent, narrowing the space between us until I caught the subtle hint of his cologne mingling with the crisp aroma of soap. My body tightened, my breath snagging in my throat. "Shall I cease my tale?" His question lingered in the air, gentle yet unwavering. In that moment, I stood at the crossroads of possibility, the word teetering on the edge of my tongue. Yet silence enveloped me as my lips parted, leaving me thick with unspoken thoughts. Instead, I sensed the gentle pressure of his hand gliding softly across the smooth of my back, fingers meandering upward until they found their way to the edge of my shoulder. His thumb glided gently along the line of my sweater, his gaze firmly anchored to mine, opposed to any hint of dissent. There existed not a single one. As I finally released my breath, it emerged unsteady and fragmented, my body tilting ever so slightly toward his touch, much like a moth irresistibly drawn to the flickering flame. We refrained from kissing, not in that moment, not in the open where prying eyes could witness, yet the tension enveloped us, drawing our bodies closer in a wordless pact that neither of us had the courage to articulate. The journey back seemed to stretch on forever. Each stoplight, each turn, serves as a poignant reminder of the choice I had yet to embrace, or maybe the one I had already committed to long before I was ready to acknowledge it. I wandered through the rooms for the remainder of the evening, a restless spirit unable to find peace. My body yearned for the warmth of his hands, the strength of his hold, the pressure of his lips against mine. But beyond that, I longed for the way he gazed at me, as if I still existed beneath the layers of routine and concession. When the message finally arrived, brief and to the point, "Do you find yourself in solitude?" I responded without a moment's pause, typing the one word that resonated within me: "Indeed." Even before the knot echoed through the air, I found myself in a state of anticipation. The knock at the door was soft, almost polite, as if the burden of what lingered on the other side could be eased by its tenderness. Yet, it was not. My hands quivered against the polished wood as I extended my grasp for the handle, fingers wrapping firmly around it, urging myself to find a steady breath. I recognized the figure instantly. The instant my phone vibrated, I sensed it was significant. Against the kitchen counter, a solitary line of text shimmered in the dim light, beckoning me with an allure I was all ready to immerse into decline. As I swung the door open, he was there, one hand nestled in the pocket of his jeans, the other casually propped against the frame, leaning just a bit, his gaze unwavering. He remained expressionless. He was not obliged to. The distance that separated us crackled with energy, as if we were teetering on the edge of something electric, the atmosphere heavy with expectation, vibrating just beneath the surface. I quietly moved aside, allowing him to pass without uttering a single word. The gateway, his gaze lingered on me, drifting slowly, resting at the untied knot of my hair, the delicate straps of the top I had selected with a mix of carelessness and intention. My body reacted before my mind could fully comprehend, the subtle clenching deep within me, a warmth unfurling across my chest as if my very skin recalled the sensation of his hands. With a gentle touch, I eased the door shut, ensuring it made no sound as he departed. Silence enveloped us. The second lingered, elongated and excruciating, until he approached me, approaching the distance with deliberate, rhythmic strides, his hand extended, fingers gliding along the delicate line of my collarbone, ascending to the gentle curve of my neck. I tilted my head back slightly, a reflexive gesture as his touch sparked a flame within me that I could no longer contain beneath the weight of logic. "I shouldn't be here," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Yet, his hand remained with me. "I understood," I replied, and then I moved closer, bridging the space that had merely been a mirage, my form melding with his as if pulled by an unseen force. His lips sought mine with an insatiable desire. It was a sensation that resonated with both comfort and urgency, lips pressing firmly together, fingers weaving through my hair as he intensified the kiss. This time, there was an urgency that swept away any hesitation, a raw need that propelled forward without the burden of careful pacing. The kiss transformed, becoming bolder and heavier, infused with the weight of every moment we had restrained, every glance that lingered just a heartbeat too long, every breath we had stolen in the quiet spaces between us. In a realm where we donned the guise of purity, his hands glided down my back, drawing me nearer, enveloping me, as if he feared I would disappear the moment he released his grip. I found myself leaning into him, my body yielding against his, giving in to the irresistible draw I had resisted in vain. The warmth of his breath enveloping me pressed against my cheek. The firm line of his chest met me. Mine, the gentle, purposeful glide of his hand along my waist. Everything fell apart for me, bit by bit, as he gently pulled away from the kiss. His forehead lingered against mine, our breaths intertwining, soft and delicate. "This doesn't feel wrong," he whispered, and I loathed how deeply I resonated with his words. We lingered in that moment, caught in the stillness of the house, our breaths a hesitant rhythm, accompanied only by the gentle tick of the clock in the hallway, marking the seconds that we could no longer ignore. "I can't help but desire you," he confessed, his voice trembling ever so slightly at the brink. My hand rose, fingers gliding softly along the side of his face, following the gentle curve of his jaw. My lips parted, yet the words lingered, too weighty to take flight. What can I express that won't come across as a mere justification? What tale could unravel the mystery of this hunger that had taken root so deep inside me? The reality was, I had no desire to bring it to an end either. For countless years, I wove a tale where desire seemed to fade with time, where the notion of marriage signified the closing chapter of longing, a specific discomfort, a subtle fire simmering just under the surface. Yet, there it stood, vibrant and keen, each contact a gentle nudge, whispering that I remained capable of longing. It was not the gentle, calculated warmth I had grown accustomed to, but something fierce, immediate, and impossible to ignore. We glided into the living room, our hands intertwined, bodies irresistibly drawn forward by the unspoken words that lingered in the air around us. The couch welcomed me as I surrendered to its embrace, drawing him along, his presence enveloping me in its depths, his lips discovering the tender curve beneath my ear. His fingers danced along at the very edge of my shoulder. The strap of my top begins to slip down, slowly and carefully, as if I were unwrapping something both delicate and dangerous. My skin quivered under his caress. My body arched into him, a deep yearning ignited within me. But then, just as the heat between us threatened to overflow into something inevitable, he paused, drawing back just enough to lock his gaze with mine. "Go," he murmured softly. I gazed at him, my breath quickening beneath the delicate fabric, my lips tender and full from the intensity of his kiss. My heart pounded fiercely within my chest, the struggle between guilt and desire ripping me apart. However, I found myself at a loss for words. Once more, my hand rose, fingers wrapping around the front of his shirt, drawing him back down to me, my lips seeking his with all the conviction I couldn't express in words. The night enveloped us, the walls of the house standing as quiet witnesses to the unspoken choices we repeated time and again. There existed neither a plan nor a future articulated between. We were consumed by the intensity of the present, the sensation of his body pressed against mine, an undeniable force that held us captive. The flavor of him lingered on my tongue, the warmth of his hands tracing the skin I had nearly forgotten, awakening a sense of life within me. And when he finally departed, long after the moon had ascended high above the rooftops, the heaviness of his absence filled the room with a weight as palpable as his presence had been. I lay awake for hours, the sheets and wine around my legs, my body still quivering with the echoes of the night. with the echo of his touch, the burden of guilt. I believed that moment would never arrive. Only the relentless pain of understanding that I would allow it to unfold once more. For the reality was clear. I wished for it to go on forever. I longed to express that following that fateful night. Clarity finally found me, that the burden of my actions bore down on me with such intensity, that guilt enveloped me, and the shame coiled around my throat so fiercely, that I was left with no option but to confess, flee, or resist. The yearning. But that is not the tale that unfolded. What unfolded was perhaps even more dire. What unfolded was a deep, gnawing hunger. Longing possesses a unique reasoning, its own rhythm, its own guidelines. Once it grips you, once it discovers your vulnerabilities, it refuses to release its hold. It remains indifferent to the adornments of fingers, or the countless years spent in shared meals and intimate moments. It boldly takes its place. It lingers, steadfast, assured, yearning. In the days that followed, I navigated the mundane with such fervor that it left me utterly drained. I wore a smile when it was expected, answered phone calls, and replied to messages from my husband, all while my hands still tingled with the lingering memory of another's touch. His voice over the phone was warm, comforting, imbued with the gentle attentiveness I had always recognized. Years, he shared tales of the meetings, the colleagues he encountered, and the dinner invitation he received that he simply couldn't turn down. His words crafted the familiar scene of our existence. Secure, expected, whole. I responded as I always did, my voice unwavering, my answers instinctive, yet deep within, an unseen force tugged at the delicate strands of that tidy tapestry. As the layers peeled away, a hush enveloped the house, making it seem even more desolate than before, despite the fact that it had always embraced a stillness in his presence. Departing, yet I had transformed. Or perhaps I had finally acknowledged a truth I had kept hidden for far too long. Once upon a time, in a world filled with wonder, there existed a singular figure, a weaver of tales, who embarked on a journey of self-discovery and adventure. Began to see myself once more, the manner in which I selected my garments each dawn, how my fingers danced upon the silk of particular fabrics, glasses, the delicate lace of underthings I hadn't donned in months. Not for my husband, not even for the man I should never have touched, that for the version of myself I believed had vanished, woman who still yearned to feel desirable, to feel alive. As I beheld my reflection in the hallway, I caught a glimpse in the mirror, lingering a moment longer than I once would have. I allowed my gaze to wander over the gentle contours that time had etched upon my face, the delicate arc of my lips, the unadorned skin of my shoulders. I lingered there, more than was needed, fiddling with the neckline of my dress, observing how the fabric embraced the contours beneath. The days wove together, each one seamlessly blending into the next, filled with minor duties and the weighty, lingering pain of anticipation. Each nose from beyond the window made my heart race, while every floorboards creaked tight and a knot deep within me. Uncertainty lingered in the air, leaving me to wonder if he would return once more. The gentle knock at the back door caught my attention, and now I hadn't inquired. It didn't take me off guard. With a sense of anticipation, I opened it without a moment's doubt. He stood there, fully present, shedding any pretense of casualness, revealing himself without the veil of practiced calm. With his hands tucked away in his pockets, he held a gaze that was unwavering and direct. "I shouldn't be here," he repeated. I might have echoed those very words, reciting the same cautions once more. We both understood it held no significance, yet I remained unaware. Instead, I chose to step aside. He glided by me with deliberate slowness, as though he were gauging each step, as if he anticipated my hesitation, my desire to shut the door behind him and put an end to whatever this was before it had the chance to blossom into something was beyond my grasp. Yet I left the door ajar, I trailed behind him into the kitchen, where the atmosphere thickened, a palpable tension enveloping us like a familiar cloak. I settled against a counter, my arms draped casually in front of me, observing him as he lingered in that moment, uncertain of how near he could approach this time, uncertain if I would allow him. He paused, his gaze lingering on my face, seeking something I wasn't quite sure how to provide. A sign. "May I have your permission?" Her beckoning call. I offered him nothing, only the gentle arc of my form reclining, my lips slightly parted to allow our breath to escape, slow and steady. As my gaze remained fixed, secured upon his, it was sufficient. He traversed the distance that lay between us, his hand rising, fingers grazing softly against my cheek before gliding back into my hair, holding it just firmly enough to draw my face closer to his. The kiss arrived with a fierce urgency, his lips colliding with mine, carrying the intensity of every moment spent in anticipation. I savored the urgency on his tongue, sensed the hunger in the way his body pressed against mine, pinning me between the unyielding edge of the counter and the firm line of his chest. I surrendered with great ease. Entirely. My hands glided to his shoulders, fingers weaving into the fabric of his shirt, drawing him nearer, craving more. This time, there was no measured rhythm, no gentle, hesitant caresses, just the unfiltered pain of two souls who understood the boundaries yet crossed them regardless. His mouth wandered down my neck, teeth brushing softly against the delicate skin beneath my ear, causing me to gasp as my body arched in response. Naturally within his hands discovered the small of my back, gliding beneath the hem of my blouse, warm and steady, upon my skin. We transitioned from the kitchen to the living room in silence, our bodies entwined, hands exploring with abandon, lips remaining connected for no longer than a breath. The couch embraced us once more, my back sinking into the soft cushions, his presence enveloping me with a gentle weight, anchoring me in the melody. In that instant, I peeled back the layers of doubt that lingered within me. Yet, in that moment, he hesitated, drawing back. He leaned in just enough to gaze down at me, his breath coming in heavy puffs, I scanning with intent. "We shall not cease our journey, will we?" His voice carried a gravelly weight, a palpable tension woven from the struggle between holding back and yearning. I remained silent. I reached up, my fingers grazing his jaw, drawing him back down to me, my lips seeking his once more. The truth hung in the air, unspoken, as we moved beyond the facade. The night enveloped us, and in the warmth of his touch, I felt the contours of my being etched in his memory. Questions of right or wrong faded away. I understood that this moment was destined to unfold. When my husband finally came back, the house had already mastered the art of guarding my secret. All walls embraced the silence, guarding the secrets of what had transpired within, as though they had not borne witness to the gradual, intentional unraveling of the life I had meticulously crafted. In the heart of the home, the kitchen gleamed with cleanliness. The bed lay perfectly made, and the laundry was folded with care, tucked away neatly in the drawers, waiting for its next adventure. My hands glided through the routines with a practiced grace, my body executing the motions of a woman whose life appeared to be in harmony. Yet within me, chaos reigned. Some betrayals unfold quietly, without the clamor of slammed doors, the heat of raised voices, or the chaos of objects hurled in fury. Some betrayals unfold with such subtlety that they seep into the shadows, like a slow leak, initially overlooked, until one fateful day you discover the ground beneath you is crumbling away. I believed I would sense it. The heavy burden of shame, the suffocating guilt that's meant to trail behind you like a shadow. Yet I found that guilt is not always a cacophony. At times, it dons the visage of yearning. At times, it carries the flavor of lips that were never meant to touch yours. For 2 days following that final night, he maintained a careful distance, I didn't see him. I didn't hear the knock at the back door. But his presence lingered in the air, palpable and heavy. I found myself gazing out the kitchen window longer than I should have, hoping to catch a glimpse of a fleeting shadow. My skin still tingled where his hands had once held me, fingers mapping out memories that refused to fade. Just then, my husband stepped through the door, suitcase in hand, a stark contrast to the ghost that hovered in my thoughts. His smile held that gentle curve I had encountered countless times before. Warm, inviting, and reassuring. He pressed his lips to my cheek, their warmth a gentle caress, devoid of any longing, and inquired about the house, the garden, the small intricacies that had perpetually occupied the space between us. I responded as I always did, my voice steady, my smile courteous. Yet, a fragment of my being lingered beyond my own perception, observing the unfolding drama as if I were an outsider. I beheld the woman who had once held steadfast to her convictions, now acquiescing, as if she had not already reduced those boundaries to mere remnants of smoke. During dinner, I absorbed his tales of the conference, the colleagues he encountered, the deals that flourished, and those that fell short. His words danced in the air, weaving through bites of roasted chicken and sips of the same dry, reliable wine he always chose. A comforting presence in the familiar setting. In that moment, I mirrored his smile, shared laughter at the perfect intervals, and let my fingers glide over his hand on the table, a gesture that felt as natural as breathing, honed through countless rehearsals. Yet, within me, my thoughts drifted elsewhere, to more powerful hands, to a mouth that kissed with intention. That night, as we nestled together in the stillness of our shared bed, his touch was soft and unhurried, just as it had always been. Yet, my body remained unresponsive to his call. I lay beneath him, eyes closed, hands resting loosely at his sides, my mind drifting far away, my skin yearning for a spark that never arrived. I understood the role I was meant to embody, the nuances of sound I needed to create, the subtle arch of my back that would convey the right emotion, and how to conclude the performance seamlessly, all while maintaining the facade. Yet, deep down, I felt an emptiness, or perhaps a haunting echo of another's experience. As the moment drew to a close, he pressed a gentle kiss upon my shoulder, his voice a tender whisper as he confessed how much he had longed for me. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing down the pain that welled up in my throat. I pondered whether he sensed it, the hollow space beneath my skin where love had once thrived. The following morning, I went through the motions once more. As the sun began to rise, I found myself surrounded by the remnants of breakfast, the dishes piled high, and the ever-growing list of errands that whispered to me, urging completion. I observed him depart for the office, his briefcase swaying gently at his side, his posture upright, shoulders squared, exuding confidence. As the door clicked shut, a heavy silence enveloped me, and I could feel my breath hitching in my chest. I can't tell if I had been anticipating the message, or if a part of me had already crafted it in my mind before the words ever graced my phone. Do you have some time to spare? The response lingered just out of sight, posed beneath my fingertips, ready to emerge before I could even begin to question it. Gather around. The knock at the back door arrived with an urgency that took me by surprise, as if he had been lurking nearby, aware of the small gap I had left unguarded for him. The door within me that I had left ajar, when I welcomed him in, was filled with silence, a space where words were unnecessary. Only the unwavering draw of souls that had long ago selected one another, well before any consent was sought. His hands discovered me effortlessly, as if they instinctively recalled my form. My body responded to him before my mind had a chance to step in. Yet, on this occasion, there was an unmistakable shift. This time, as he cradled my face in his hands, his lips met mine with an intensity that spoke of longing. There was a serene stillness, devoid of urgency, no hasty removal of garments, no frantic grasping or tugging, just a moment suspended in time, rich with unspoken connection. In the midst of it all, there existed a quiet patience, there existed a sense of care, and that, in some inexplicable way, deepened the turmoil, for it seemed to hold a deeper significance. I sensed it in the way his fingers danced along the edge of my jaw, tracing the line with a deliberate slowness, as if he were committing it to memory. The softness of his mouth against my throat was a gentle whisper, the weight of his body pressing into mine with a serene assurance, as if time itself had paused, granting us an eternity in that moment. And I loathed it, for desiring him was one matter, but requiring him was an entirely different tale. Yet, this tenderness, this dangerous sweetness, felt like the dawn of something neither of us could rightfully claim when it was over. When we lay entwined in the gentle aftermath of it all, his hand lingered gently at my hip, his thumb tracing slow